The Heroic Life of Ruby Bridges. Ruby grew up in a small town in Mississippi called Tylertown. She was born on September 8, 1954. Mississippi was very racist at the time, and African Americans were called blacks and coloreds. When little Ruby was 2 years old, they moved to Louisiana. New Orleans, also being in the Deep South, the people were very racist. However, Ruby's parents thought they would be more successful in the city. Ruby was born to Avon and Lucille Bridges. Ruby's father brought in all the money for the family, and Ruby's mother took care of the household and the children. Lucille and Avon Bridges went on to have 4 more children who Ruby looked after during the day. They were a very happy family. During that time in New Orleans, Louisiana, there was a law called separate but equal, where whites were treated superior and were kept separate from what they called colored people. Whites believed they were superior to the African Americans at the time, and they did not want to share anything with them. They had separate bathrooms, movie theaters, doors, seats, and many other separate facilities. However, that all changed in the Brown versus Board of Education decision of 1954. Brown won over the Board of Education. So why is this important? Well, this means that blacks can now go to white schools. Many white people were infuriated with this decision because they wanted to keep their separate ways. However, black students made up 60% of the public school population in 1960, while white students only made up 40%. In the spring of 1960, 137 kindergartners were chosen to have tests and background checks. Ruby was selected to take the test and later selected to go to the white school. Her mother supported her for educational purposes, but her father thought it was a bad idea because of the racism going on at the time. Fall of 1960, school was delayed for Ruby because many whites protested against her going to school. On November 16th, riots marched to the school board. Finally, Ruby went to school by herself, although she had 3 U.S. Marshals and her mother escorting her to school. When Ruby arrived at school the first day with the 3 marshals protecting her, crowds of people were already standing outside, ready for her arrival, shouting hurtful things at her like 2468, we don't want to integrate and you don't belong here. They were also attempting to throw things at Ruby. At school, Ruby was all alone because all of the other children had been taken out of the class because the parents didn't want their children learning with Ruby because she was colored. In school, Ruby was very smart, with the help of her teacher, Mrs. Henry, who was originally from up north in Baltimore, who did not believe that whites should get any right to a better education than blacks. In the beginning of the school year, marshals had to sit outside the door of the classroom to protect Ruby and take her to the bathroom. Thankfully, by the end of the school year, the protesters were gone, and Ruby had made some good new friends. Also, some black students and white students had joined her class. Little Ruby Bridges had made a big impact on the civil rights movement going on at the time. 3 years later, Martin Luther King Jr. made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, while people watched in admiration. Ruby going to school had a great impact on her father, mother, grandparents, and town. Her father lost his job, which meant there wasn't as much money coming into the family. Her mother was no longer allowed to go to the grocery store that they had always gone to. Her grandparents, who were farmers, were evicted from the land they had lived on for 25 years, and her town started to lose money because whites were boycotting the businesses in the town. By 1964, 4 years later, only 809 black students went to an integrated school. However, it was a change. Ruby ended up graduating from an integrated high school, and she wanted to go to college very much, but she had no one to help her through the process, so sadly, she could not go. So that led her to work at William Franz Elementary School in 1995, which was the school she had gone to as a child. Also in that year, a book was written about her childhood, which raised awareness for her story. 3 years later, a movie was made about her life. It raised even more awareness for her story. More recently, Ruby has created the Ruby Bridges Foundation, which continues to fight for equality among all people. Their motto is racism is a grown-up disease and we must stop using our children to spread it.